More Than Rich podcast. Today I'm here with Scottie. Scottie, what is your last name? I know you two personally, and I don't even know your last name. How do you say it?
Oceano.
Oceano. Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty much currently you're running what would you even call it? Like a retreat, right?
Yeah, we have a retreat center on the Big Island of Hawaii. We are on 5 acres, totally off grid. We have, everything is off grid: rainwater, solar array, like high tech lithium battery backup, like all that stuff. And we're on a former flower nursery. So we have this really beautiful botanical garden. We have the largest variety of Virea rhododendron flowers in the entire Pacific. So that's northern and some of the southern hemisphere. So like it's a pretty magical place. So we're set up as a church, like a nonprofit spiritual organization. And there's a couple different branches of that. But what we do at the retreat center is we work with people one-on-one or with couples, or like two friends that want to come at the same time. We don't do big groups. And I personally just lead psilocybin ceremonies. And then I
You
have
just
a
made it
unique
sound like
approach to...
getting blitzed all day. Is that what you're doing?
No, definitely not. No. Yeah, I work like the magic of the magic mushroom is not just the journey of taking it. It's the integration part. Like that's where the real healing is. Like 85% of the work is done after you've tripped.
Can we jump into that a little bit? Because I'm over here wondering, like, I'm trying to imagine if I go to your retreat and you're gonna like warm me into it. I'm assuming most people have not tried it, so you got to be like, do you have any anxieties that are like gonna come up? Maybe you want to get to know them. How do you fish somebody out? Like, are you putting them at ease? Are you introducing yourself like, I'm your guide for this trip? What's the
Yeah.
process like?
So we have an intake form. What the first process is a call. We schedule a Zoom call, and it's just face to face, just them asking whatever questions they have, and us asking questions about their intentions, and then we ask them about any kind of prescription medications. There are certain prescriptions that you cannot be on if you're taking psilocybin. You could have serotonin syndrome and potentially die. I don't know how often that's happened. It's rare, but it could happen.
Do you think it's
So
do you think it's mental? Like induced? Is it a thing like that?
no, it's serotonin syndrome. So if you're taking like a like anti-anxiety meds or
Oh,
depression meds, yeah,
combination overdoing it. I got you.
yeah. So so and then once we do the screening call, there's a pretty comprehensive intake form that people fill out, and we want to know any kind of past traumas. We get a lot of people with sexual abuse trauma, child abuse, when they're kids, bullying, alcohol, addictions of all kinds, alcohol, food addictions, cigarette smoking, it's everything, right?
What do you find psilocybin is hardest against? Like what do you feel like it doesn't cure? What's the hardest?
The hardest what?
Because it seems like you can drop your habits like pretty easily when you're on one of these trips. You can kind of let go. It's a new beginning, kind of. I don't know if I want to use the word as like a rehab in a sense. Taking mushrooms from other
Yeah,
drugs.
well,
So do you find people relapsing on something specific?
oh yeah, I've had people just not do integration and they just go back to their regular normie life and just pick up where they left off. That's absolutely happened for sure. It's there's some people, and dosage is a big part of this. You take there's all kinds of stories, including people like Paul Stamets, who used to have a stutter. I don't know if you ever heard that story, but I forget how old he was. He was pretty young. He had a bag of mushrooms. Don't know how much it was, but it was not just 5 grams. And there's a story of, he was kind of introverted. He had a really bad stutter. He took a huge bag of mushrooms, as the story goes. And there was he had climbed a tree, and there was a thunderstorm and a lightning storm, and he was up in this tree, and he was like tripping balls. And after the whole thing, and after he came back to baseline, he had no more stutter. So
Yeah.
there, I have my own personal stories where
Sounds like
I
a
had
rewiring, by the way.
definitely there's some rewiring going on. They don't know exactly how it works, but they know that it works, right? So yeah, it's
What
pretty
is
interesting.
what is integration really? Like, are you trying to say you need to be like told, hey, don't just go back to life and normally do your normal daily things because you probably forget, right? Really quick.
Yeah, so integration is essentially, to just oversimplify it in a nutshell, is making sense of your experience and integrating that experience and any insights into your everyday life. Um, so there's a lot of preparation. The way I operate, there's required reading. So if you don't like to read a book, it's probably not for you. But it's a short book. It's about 128 pages, but it helps people deal with acceptance. And when you've heard of people having bad trips on all kinds of drugs, right?
It's
Most of the time,
control,
for
control usually. I think.
environment where they're at, like recreational use, being at a festival and doing, 2, 3, 4, 5 grams of mushrooms, or many mics of LSD or something like that, you're setting yourself up for a really potentially uncomfortable
Yeah, I
experience.
would argue that that falls under control only because you feel like you don't have any when you're outside of a in safe
Oh, hell,
environment, like a controlled
yeah, it's
environment. Yeah,
absolutely,
you're like
for
anything can
sure.
happen, anything, you're just lost. It's really hard to like cohesively put sentences together over 3 grams. I feel.
It depends on what stage. I mean,
Yeah, I
depends on
get.
what stage
Yeah,
you're at.
kind of. It was kind
Yeah,
of broad statement, but when
yeah.
you're on it, when you're really kicking in, is what I meant.
I mean, there's times like when you take. I mean, there's been times like it's. There's so many factors that go into it, and it may sound really esoteric and woo woo, but like the moon cycle has something to do with it.
Hmm.
Um, you know, but more subtly, the planets in astrology have something to do with it. Women's cycles have something to do with it. Your where your personal like biorhythmic, um, where you are for what's the word I'm looking for, like where your biorhythms are at, which is impossible to really measure. If you're fasting or not, what kind of food you're eating leading up to it, how much food you have in your system, and then of course the environment you're in. I've taken nearly 5 grams and absolutely nothing happened, and then I've taken 1.5 grams and got my ass handed to me.
So
So
let's talk,
it's
can I let's say something about that because I feel like it's about the trip, right? The environment, who you're with, because I've definitely noticed it doesn't matter how much anyone that you're with takes. Somebody can take 10, someone can take 2, someone can take 1. And in some sense, everyone will, I guess, quote, vibe, be on some kind of same understanding to where it didn't matter how much if someone took more than the other. So that is a interesting thing to note. But I have taken the heroic dose to where it's just like I've learned that I'm so introspective because of mushrooms. Like I was like,
oh
wow,
yeah,
I really just live in my head because I can just be like, let me sit down and just think about that. Like you just want to think for a little bit. It's interesting.
yeah, yeah. You know, um, and the other thing too is their strain. Like there's different. So the penis envy strain is really freaking potent. Amazonian strain, pretty potent. And then you have golden teachers, which are in regular doses, like 3 to 5 grams, pretty manageable and can be like really beautiful. So yeah, there's a lot of things that go into it. So that's why it's important to make sure that you're going into it. So people have heard this that are familiar with listening to podcasts about mushrooms and entheogens, set and setting. So the set is the mindset going into the journey, and then the setting is the environment where you're at. Are you at a festival, or are you in a comfortable, familiar room with a trip sitter or a facilitator that you're comfortable with and know? Like, do you feel safe? So the mindset is a huge thing. I had like there's this um, when I do mushrooms, I just go into the. I live in Hawaii, and I just walk into the jungle usually during the day.
Just go look
Um,
for them.
and no, I know where they come from. They grow. Yeah. So, but there was this one time, like the standard, like for me, like if I just want to just have a good, nice journey, 3 grams, fasting for, about 12 to 16 hours. It's usually like really predictable. Um, but mindset. So I had watched a movie called Bird Box. Did you watch Bird Box, that movie?
Didn't like it,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah.
It's creepy. So it was a cool movie. I had watched it like maybe 8 days before I did a mushroom trip. And so I took some mushrooms, and there's usually a very specific place I go, and I usually take them at my house and then drive up to this trailhead and then walk into the jungle. And usually by the time I get to my desired destination, like they're kicking in. Well, as soon as I parked my car, they're already starting. I'm like, holy shit, I better hurry. So I start like walking fast, which is increasing the metabolism in my body. So
Increasing
then
your
all of a
anxiety.
sudden the wind starts blowing, and I'm like, oh, okay. And it was this gentle breeze. And then my mind immediately went to Bird Box. Like that, it was the same type of breeze. And then, dude, and then that guy's voice, the guy where his eyes changed, the guy who like was trying to kill the pregnant woman giving birth, like
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
guy
yeah, yeah,
who
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
drawing those things, his voice got into my head, and I started hearing his voice, and I wasn't even like full on tripping yet. I'm like, oh man, I gotta direct
Damn.
I gotta be directed. So I made it. The mushrooms are like hitting me super fast. I had to like go into this spot that I usually don't go to, lay down literally on the ground. That's what I usually do. And I'm just in my eyes, I'm seeing that guy's crazy
Jesus.
eyes and hearing his voice, and it was the most disturbing trip I ever had.
Dude,
Um,
it's weird how it
and
pulls you in like that. You can't get out of a thought, you know?
yeah, dude, it was not freaking fun, And so that's so the point being is mindset is really important. Like if you're going on a healing journey and not doing recreationally, you have to have a good mindset. So we have a whole protocol for people. Like, these things should not be part of your daily routine. These things should not be in your diet. Diet
Don't be
also
don't
plays a
be
big role.
alone. Don't be alone.
No, this is before. This is like before you do the journey, like 10 to 14 days
Damn.
before you take the mushrooms. Like, we're serious
Damn.
about people's transformation. We really want
What?
people to have a good experience. Yeah.
That is a long time.
Yeah. Well, if people are serious about getting past a major trauma, you put in the work, you're either serious about it or you're not. And
2 weeks is good enough though to where you feel like you live somewhere, so that is fair.
yeah, yeah. Well, they're not here at our place for 2 weeks. It's for 2 weeks before they arrive. They're getting in the right
Oh
mindset.
shit.
They're doing the right diet.
I got
They're
it.
reading this book
What do you
about.
recommend though? How long do you recommend on average people do stay?
Oh, it's a total of 6 days. So, or 6 nights. Yeah. So they do. We have like one day of like just acclimating and chilling. Then we do a day trip, like a light dose, like 1.5 grams, and then we take 24 hours off, like no medicine, and we go on an excursion on like hiking to the volcano or going to the hot ponds or something, and then after that we do a night journey, which is like the big dose, usually around 5 grams or more, depending on body weight and how much experience they have.
Do
And
do
then,
people ever hit you up to like mitigate travel and things like that?
what do you mean mitigate travel?
like to be like, hey, can you find us places to stay or do our flights? Like, do you ever upcharge for things like that or help people in that
Well, we
aspect?
host them. I mean, we're a full service retreat center, so
Got
they're
you.
staying. Yeah, but they take care of their own flights. But it's
I
full service. So once they land, it's like we pick them up at the airport, and they don't have to worry about anything.
I'm literally just saying it so the crowd knows it, though. I know this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
For
yeah.
sure. But what is your interpretation on mushrooms when you see like the universe breathing? Do you take it like everything's alive, like what you're
Yeah,
looking at, what you're seeing? Why do we see faces and everything?
it's a good question. So I'm just going to give you my interpretation. There's people who might disagree, but, and I'm not saying my interpretation is better or anything, but I have been studying um, esoteric topics and a student since I was 7 years old.
Damn.
Um, I grew up in, with a Rosicrucian father. He was a Rosicrucian. He had reached the highest levels of initiation. So from the age of 7 until, now I'm 50. I just turned 54 a couple days ago. I, um, I've been studying the occult. I've been studying all kinds of other practices and religions, and
But
um,
back up though.
yeah,
When you're talking that young, what are you doing that's like abnormal? Like what would a kid not be doing today that you're like, why was I doing that? Or I can't believe it. That's unorthodox. Something weird. Because
what do
that
you
doesn't
mean?
sound that doesn't sound like an average kid would be involved in these topics or be studying this or follow under his parent.
Yeah, well, at that age, it was pretty basic. So the first thing he taught me was visualization techniques. So like, there's that book in the movie, The Secret. Thoughts become things and all that shit. So I mean, that book has its purpose. It's like manifestation 101. There's so much more that goes into that. I actually just
Yeah,
got
yeah.
done
It's
teaching
just
the 30
basic,
day.
I guess is what you're saying. It's like a
It was
framework.
very, it was basic. It was like, okay, like I could just tell you because I just remember it as if it was yesterday, um, before bed, or my dad would put me to bed, and he would tell me like, okay, as you're going to bed, I want you to focus your attention on your mind's eye right here, which is your third eye. And then, I played sports. Um, so he would say, okay, now I want you to picture yourself as if you're on the field doing this, and you smell the grass and you hear the coaches and the whistles. And like, he would literally paint a picture in my head for me, and, or have me visualize it. And then, so that's how I started, like visualization techniques. And then it started that the older I got, each year it was like more and more stuff, but um, he was like planting seeds. He wouldn't like explain everything. I had to like, and that's why I became a really, um, you know, I'm a critical thinker, which I think is an important attribute for
So,
for humanity at this
were
stage.
you manifesting anything like at a young age? Were you
Oh,
like, did
dude,
I just do
yeah,
that?
it wasn't really like that. He didn't
Deja
say I'm going.
vu? Like what? I'm just like I'm trying to imagine.
He didn't say I'm going to teach you manifestation. It was literally just teaching me like how shit works. Like, this is a thing, you could do it, and when you
Play
do
with it,
it,
kind of like a
yeah,
toy. Play with it.
yeah. But it was literally, it wasn't even like this weird esoteric thing. To me, it was normal. And it's interesting that you asked that question, because by the time I was a teenager, I when I got to junior high, I started like talking about some of these things, and my friends like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I'm like, then I realized that none of my friends were doing any of this stuff. And but the
Just
thing
like
is,
dumbfounded
it
meme face.
yeah, but it was like the best mindset training I could ever have. I had just like incredible confidence. Everything that I did, I excelled at. Anything, everything. I've been a professional athlete in several different sports. not because I grew up doing them, but because I was just like, oh, that looks cool. I'm going to do it. I was a pro skier for 13 years. I didn't learn how to ski until I was about 18 years old. By the time I was 22, I turned pro, and I was beating people who were literally born skiing. I became a Red Bull athlete, and back then, it's still to this day, but Red Bull sponsors only like the top tier, best of the best. That was a huge
How old were
achievement for.
you?
I was 27. Yeah,
What?
I was the first Red Bull athlete. Me and my friend Shane McConkey were the first Red Bull athletes in North America before the product was ever introduced in the United States. Yeah,
What?
and
That's so sick.
all of that is literally due to my father teaching me visualization techniques, among many other things. But visualization was a huge one.
I'm kind of thrown off by the skiing part. So was it actually fun or was it just easy? Like, why did you do that? Where did that
Oh,
come
dude, it
from?
was so much fun. It was awesome. It was like, yeah, it was amazing. I traveled all over the world. Usually, other people were paying most of the time. I had sponsors, free gear. The
Damn, so they're
people
paying you to have fun.
paying me. Yeah, I mean, I have
Sick.
a lot. I have a lot of dead friends. I just had another friend die a couple weeks ago. Her name was Kasha Rigby, like a friend that I traveled with, did mountaineering trips with, and things like that. I've got close to 30 dead friends because what I did was like really freaking dangerous. And
And
I wasn't the
all
best.
of them are in a dangerous occupation is what you're getting at.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Damn. Damn.
And the other thing too, it's like I wasn't the best. I wasn't like I wasn't the Michael Jordan of skiing, of big mountain
What
skiing.
what is so dangerous though?
Avalanches.
Oh my god. So is
Yeah.
that the majority of them or is it just that unpredictable?
Yep.
Damn.
Very unpredictable.
So
Yeah.
you never know when you just land on something that just goes inward basically? Is that what we're imagining here?
Yeah, without going into the physics of it, it has to deal with the structure of snow crystals and how they bond.
You
Uh,
just hit a spot that's way too soft.
it's not about soft; it's about how well the crystals um, underneath of what you're skiing is holding on to. So there's layers. Like you might get a snowstorm. The first snowstorm might be 2 inches, and then you get a warm period, and then it snows like 8 inches, and then you get a cooling or freezing period, and then warming period, and then another layer of snow. And so you have all these different layers, and over the course of time, it's like looking at like a layer cake of different shapes of snow crystals. So there's a certain amount of mitigation you can do, but you're still at the mercy of Mother Nature, and it's really unpredictable. You know, I live in Hawaii, and I surf pretty big waves, not like 60 footers, but like I've surfed 18-foot waves, which is really freaking big in Hawaii, like 18-foot faces. And I have friends that ride big, huge waves, 60-foot waves. An acquaintance of mine, Garrett, used to hold the world record for largest wave, like around 100 feet. And these guys are taking massive risk because it's a lot of water. And I don't understand how they're surviving like some of these big waves when they wipe out, but they do. And you would think, like, I look at it because I'm out there, and when it's like 18 to 20 foot in Hawaii, it's really powerful, and you feel it. Like there's so much pressure when you wipe out, like it's hard to hold your breath. So it's pretty dangerous. But if you compare big wave surfing and how many deaths there are, fatalities per year, compared to big mountain skiing, um, it's so much more dangerous to be in the mountain skiing. There's way more
Yeah,
people that die every year. Yeah.
never thought that. That's very
Yeah,
interesting.
you wouldn't think. You wouldn't think, but it's true, you
No.
know. Yeah. So yeah,
Do you have any close calls like that or any crazy
oh
stories
yeah,
where you,
I was completely buried
what?
in an avalanche. Completely buried one time, and then buried up to my neck another time. I've been in 3 avalanches. One of them I skied out of, like pretty legit avalanches. Another one I got buried up to my, about like right up to here. And then the other one I was completely buried and a team of people had to dig me out. And that
So
happened in Whistler.
first of all, talk about escaping an avalanche. Is that like the coolest shit ever and scariest shit at the same time? And then talk
No,
about
you're not.
how do you even get saved? Did you push a button? How can you move
No.
if you're
Yeah, there's no button. Well, now they have those like avalanche
I
inflatable
guess.
things. Yeah, they didn't have those. They didn't have those when I was skiing. The internet was barely existed when I was skiing. Um, but yeah, so this is just, everyone has their own experience, but again, this all goes back to my father and the teachings that I had, visualization techniques. There are things that you can do to protect yourself. And I know that sounds really fucking woo woo and shit, but like,
Hmm.
I'm still here. I'm still alive. And I was not the best. There were friends of mine that were way better than me, and they're dead. Um, so, you know, there are practices that I would do that would protect me. And part of that is a huge part of that is visualization techniques. And there's scientific reasons for that, which is like muscle memory starts to kick in. Um, and then you're also literally training yourself to be in a high pressure environment and being in the moment. So back then they used to call it the zone, and now they call it flow state. So when you're in a situation like that in an avalanche, there's no time for thinking. There's no time for being scared. The moment you are scared, if you're in a situation like that, it's not going to turn out well because you'll panic. And when you
It's
panic,
it's
you can't.
basically, if I could give it an equivalent, it's like crossing a piece of wood plank to another building, and as soon as you hesitate is when you fall.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Because you're not in the moment. You start thinking. You know, there's times to think, and there's times to let your innate intelligence take over. And
That's
that's
the
what being.
Jesus
That's what
take
being.
the wheel quote comes from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wouldn't want Jesus to take the wheel.
But so was your dad manifesting anything, or give me some
Oh
examples?
yeah,
Give me some examples of what you're like creating, or just like day to day. I don't imagine it was like immediately, but maybe what weeks, months would go
it
by,
really
and
just depends. But like the way it was taught to me is not the way people talk about it now. Like I'm going to manifest being a millionaire. Like there's a whole process to it. It's not like thoughts don't become things. Thoughts can become things. We have 60,000 thoughts a day or something like that. Imagine if all of those thoughts came to manifestation. Like, how many times did you say, I want to kill that guy, right? Yeah. So, and that didn't come to manifest. I don't know. Maybe you have murdered people. I don't know. But
no, it just had me thinking of like all that was pretty deep though. Like I was in my head right now, just thinking like that's a good ass point.
yeah. So, you know, there's a lot that goes into that whole thing. But for me, it was different in the sense that it was a way of being, not something to do. And so there is a difference. So a way of being, which it was incorporated into my regular lifestyle, which set me up for a certain mindset. And when you have the mindset to do something, that changes the game. You have such an advantage over people who may have skill, but they don't have the mindset. And I'm a perfect example of that because I didn't have the skill. I learned how to ski when I was 18. I didn't have, that, and
Yeah,
it's a it's a difficult sport to master.
it's.
And then
I'm still stuck on the fact that you said we have that many thoughts in a day. That's why I'm still like, wow.
yeah, it's like it's in the tens of thousands, something crazy.
Like it's no wonder people suppress them, dude. Like who wants that many thoughts in a day? Think about people that are like manic
You
or
know,
just like can't control them or have way more than that.
well, people become a slave to their thoughts for sure. I love being in my own thoughts.
Same,
Um,
same.
but what sucks is like if we're ruminating on something and beating ourselves up, like that's
True.
where the danger lies, right? that's where anxiety comes in. When people cannot sleep, they can't function, they get crippled by anxiety. It's because they're stuck in this loop, in this mind loop, and then they're a slave to their mind rather than their mind being a slave for them. You
See, I
know?
always imagined that the thing that would keep me from sleeping was having so many possibilities of things to do. Like that's probably like
Yeah.
the detriment of like money in an aspect, of like all these obligations and like, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like at some points things can become super overwhelming that you can't keep
Oh,
track of.
dude, absolutely. Yeah. That's why people can't sleep. That's why people are like on Xanax for their whole freaking lives, you know? Or um, I have a client.
Stifle so much, it's crazy.
Yeah. And people medicate with all kinds of things. Like people medicate with cannabis or microdosing mushrooms just so they can function. Well, it's better than prescription medications for sure, but it's not taking care of the root cause.
Yeah.
So,
and
but
and
getting
i'm
back to the original
I'm
topic, like,
saying that, acknowledging even if I do something or I'm on something, I'm noticing like, damn, I'm trying to escape the thought. I just don't want to think about something. It's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, being directive, and that's part of what I've been teaching for a while, and what I was taught is being directive with the mind.
So have you had to learn discipline, or do you feel you were born with it at a young age?
Oh man, that's a good question. I feel like I don't have any discipline sometimes. It depends on what it is. Like if it's my taxes, I don't have discipline. um, but it depends on what it is. Everyone has their weak points. So some people are are like just really disciplined at one aspect of their life, and then another aspect they're not. I don't think unless you have people like Jocko Willick or David Morehouse. That guy's freaking amazing. These people, you go through the military, they break you, right. It's like breaking a horse, and then they brainwash you.
Good
Um,
transition, by the way, to Morehouse, because I
yeah,
definitely want you to talk about that. We were talking about Danny Jones' podcast, and then
yeah,
that was kind of how we started. We just didn't
yeah,
get back to it. So yeah, I know you had some thoughts on it.
yeah. So I know David. Met him on Clubhouse. I've spent hours talking to him. I took his remote viewing course. And I've had really interesting experiences my entire life, all kinds of clairvoyant experiences. Um, Too many to list, but out of body experiences, astral travel, all without drugs, by the way. I didn't start using mushrooms until I had a really, really gnarly brain injury that like crippled me for a while.
Damn,
But
we'll talk about that later. Circle back.
sure, yeah. I took his remote viewing course, and you know, I, before that, just to kind of put things into perspective, like I've had some pretty amazing experiences without entheogens, without drugs. I fully have left my body. I have astral traveled. I have been to different planes, and these are not imaginations or dreams. These are just as real as you and I are talking. These are things that I've experienced. So remote viewing was something that I've been interested in since I was a kid, since like in the early 80s. My dad was talking about it. They would do remote viewing sessions into the pyramids, and but I didn't know how to do it. And I met David on Clubhouse, just like we all did, and kind of cultivated a more than an acquaintance. Took his course, and during the course, there were 27 other students, I believe, and from all over the world. And I will tell you that I went into it with a beginner's mindset. You have to, right? You have to just suspend all your beliefs and disbeliefs and be like, I'm going to learn the protocol. So I did that, and it was really incredible when you have 27 people who don't know each other. They're all given the same coordinates, which are two random sets of four numbers, and we're drawing the same things, talking about the same things. Now, not everybody drew and talked about the same things, but I would say, depending on the targets that we did, every single time there were numerous people, like 15 or more, that were drawing very similar or the same things or components of that thing. So, for instance, one of them was a Hindenburg, and I drew a bent propeller, and then I drew the frame of this thing. While I'm drawing it, I don't know what the hell I'm looking at. I didn't define it as the Hindenburg, but I just drew it as my mind saw it, not knowing, not judging what it was. Judging what something is while you're remote viewing is called an AOL, or an analytical overlay. That's basically meaning that your mind is analyzing something in your informational Rolodex and overlaying it onto what you're seeing.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So, first of all, is it possible to remote view just from meditating? Like on accident,
No,
you go somewhere.
no,
Okay. So another thing.
that's different.
Okay, no, what is that then?
Well, that's essentially consciousness expansion. That's what it is, right? It's consciousness expansion.
Because there's times where in meditation I'll be like, my mind is making out an image, right? Like just as you're spaced out, whatever, like relaxed. But as soon as you focus on the image and you're like, what is that? What am I trying to tell in this story? What is this movie here in my mind? It kind of dissipates.
Yeah,
But
that's
as
common.
you're but that's weird that as you're like laid back and just in the meditation, it's telling a story
Yeah,
passively.
yep,
Passively. You can't
yeah.
focus on it or it goes away. Talk
Yeah.
about some double slit observer bullshit. It's kind of annoying.
Well, so the reason for that is because once your lower mind like gets in the way of things. So once you start to, instead of being in the moment in the experience, when you start to try and analyze things, that's when your lower mind, which is the egoic orientation, is trying to project its own idea onto what you're seeing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I also feel like I refer to that space as the void. Would you not?
Mhm.
The open.
Yeah, it could seem like a void for sure. Yeah,
And
but there is a difference, between
I
astral.
question if that's what death is like, by the way.
I think there's only a few people that can answer that question, and the rest of us have to wait and find out on our own when we take that final journey. Yeah, death is fascinating. Yeah.
Do you really feel like that?
Do I feel like
Like you
what?
said, fascinating. That's a pretty strong word for death. You don't really
Yeah, it.
people don't say that. That's
Yeah,
wild.
it is fascinating to me.
Another
Like
thing is the
we're
pyramid thing you're talking about is what are they seeing inside? What's the point of it?
Oh, it's just an exercise. They were actually. So I don't think what my dad was doing was actual remote viewing, because remote viewing is a specific protocol. And the Rosicrucians started doing what they called remote viewing in the early 80s. And after having numerous conversations with Dr. Morehouse, um, that stuff, like, there's no way that the Rosicrucians would have known the specific protocol that is remote viewing, because that Ingo Swann came up with it, and David Morehouse actually wrote down the protocol, like made a manual for it. So remote viewing is something specific, in the same way that like astral travel is different than um, an outer body experience. Two totally different things, right? So there's something called astral projection, um, or consciousness projection. Um, the difference between that and remote viewing, I would say consciousness projection is you're projecting your consciousness to a specific place, which is an expansion, right? Remote viewing is you're not in a higher state of consciousness, so to speak, like your brain waves are in a different non-ordinary state, but you're looking at a specific point in time and space rather than projecting your consciousness outward in a random place. I don't know
I
if that
just
made sense.
no, I just
Yeah.
realized that I could even ask AI to make my own remote viewing experiment if I wanted to. Like just tell me how to set it up and tell me where to put the other. It would literally give me the instructions to do it.
That's a good question. I don't know if they have the protocol, but you could find out.
Yeah, that's
But
interesting.
here's the thing. Unless you're well, you listened to the podcast, and you've probably heard Morehouse talk about this, but unless you are a really experienced, like highly, like thousands of targets, a really experienced remote viewer, you cannot say, I'm going to remote view Mars and see what's there because it's all front loaded. It's all analytical overlay. Like you're literally just your mind's just gonna make shit up, and then you're gonna believe that you actually saw it. There's so many people that do it. There's this chick on Instagram. Her name is Elizabeth April. It's a shame because there's some things that she says are like pretty good, legit stuff, but the rest of it is just like clickbaity type of like I remote viewed. Remember that crazy thing that happened in Florida where people were running away from the alien or something? So she said, she's like, I remote viewed it, and this is what really happened, and there were aliens there, and I'm like, you're an idiot. You did not remote view that. You're
Telling them what
literally
they
just
want to
making
hear.
shit. Yeah.
It's fucked up.
So it's a very specific protocol, and it
Here's
works.
so I have been getting into both sides of spirituality and divination, right? Like from I Ching, learning about all this stuff. And I had recently stumbled across specific texts that I was like, okay, there's definitely some things in the world that I don't need to know. Where I was like, if I proceed any further type of shit, and I've never in my life come across some things like that. And I was like, I think I'm good. Like, I don't want to know this shit. Like, not, I didn't realize how, how dark this shit can get. You know what I mean? I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, or you might have an idea.
I mean, what you talking about, like child trafficking and shit like that?
Nah, I'm actually
Oh,
talking about like just divination, but like on a dark level. Like you can talk about demonic in an aspect, but just
yeah,
where that goes is like crazy. Like
yeah.
like we just know the surface of it, and I was like, I'm good, you know, I get it.
Yeah.
Like
Um,
to know how the world really works is like, oh shit, I don't know if I really want to know how this all operates with both sides, the other
it's so
world.
funny. My wife asked me that question tonight. She, she asked me a very similar question about like, um,
Like if you could communicate with the other side, would you be doing that regularly? And then if it deteriorated your mind or some shit for whatever reason, you
yeah, I
it
don't think
was
it would.
not
I
it,
don't know. I'm pretty strong-willed, man. Like,
I think it's beyond that. That's what's crazy.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. My take on it is like, you don't know what you don't know, right? And there's always situations that you could be presented in that totally take you off guard. However, and this is kind of getting back to preparation for any kind of entheogenic experience, ayahuasca, psilocybin, wachuma, whatever. Um, if you have a strong resolve and a strong will, and you understand how to navigate fear and how to integrate it and use it. In my experience thus far, I believe that there's like,
Insanity.
can you be in a situation where fear presents itself and you're scared? Sure. However, I believe that in hairy situations, someone who has had a lifelong dedication or even a strong dedication, it doesn't have to be lifelong, to knowing how to navigate fear and knowing thyself, like know thyself. I think that they can traverse anywhere and be able to handle whatever's presented to them,
Are you familiar
including things like divination. Yeah.
are you familiar with the universal truth, the more you know, the more the grief?
Yeah, I've, I've heard that. I was listening to something.
It's a Bible quote, I believe I just said.
Well, I was listening to something about someone who it was it was the Catholics or the Christians who said that Buddhism is a pessimistic religion,
Hmm.
because they say, everything will die. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing some of their beliefs. I'm not a Buddhist, but um, the Buddhist realizes the great cycle of life. Christian religion, like, hey, you do this, you're going to go to hell. You act this way and you praise Jesus, you're going to go to heaven, right? um, Good and bad. When you die, that's it. You're not going to reincarnate. Although the Gnostics didn't teach that. The Buddhists, on the other hand, they understand that everything's in cycles, and everything. We live in a dualistic world, which is part of the Hermetic teachings, which is what I teach. In that, their perspective is death is as beautiful as birth.
It's interesting.
So
But
you accept that, and then you're not afraid to die,
the
right?
reason I brought it up was because I was thinking of things like emerald tablets, whether it's the Bible, all these uh, Book of the Dead, things like that. All of, even if you go into there's like the Jewish mysticism books as well,
Yeah, the
and
Kabbalah.
the Zohar or something, right? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, there's different. Yeah, I don't think Zohar is part of Kabbalah, but there's there's all kinds of mystic traditions of what is now like institutionalized religion. So the Gnostics were the mystic version of Christianity. The Sufis are the mystic version of Islam. The Kabbalah is the mystic version of Judaism. And essentially, what the mysticism means is the difference between the two is one is through lived experience. That's the spiritual aspect or the mystical aspects, right? They are more interested in the experience and the spiritual side of things, having experiences. Dogmatic religions are more interested in, you know, worshiping and making rules in a nutshell.
Passing the
So,
basket for the money.
yeah, exactly. And I'm interested, obviously, in the experience. That's why we're here. We're here to experience all kinds of cool shit. So,
Do you
like,
like any other universal truths though? Like as above, so below, the cliche ones. Are there any that you
that's,
find that ring true?
yeah, absolutely. That's not a cliche. That's a universal law. It is a universal law, an immutable universal law. So, as above, so below. It's an extraction from the Corpus Hermeticum, which is a was essentially translated from Aramaic, and it comes from like Egyptian spirituality, which stems from, depending on who you ask, but this is my understanding, from the
Say
prior
it.
root race of Atlantis.
Yeah.
Prior root race of Atlantis. As above, so below. What does that mean? It means everything is connected. It means that whatever is up in the heavens is a reflection of what's going on down here.
Hate that one because that always makes me think the ocean's in the space.
Yeah. Well, the ocean, think of it like this,
You
like,
can't breathe there, and you can't breathe there.
yeah, well, the ocean, this space is akin to an ocean, right? It's formless.
Water. I guess you're right.
Yeah. But so, it means that everything is connected. So it doesn't matter how many, like, think of it this way. I live on the beach. I can hear the waves crashing. What's causing the waves? The wind is causing the waves. The wind blows across the ocean, causes ripples, and those ripples run into other ripples, and then those ripples run into others, and they get bigger and bigger. And then over time, those waves will crash onto the shores. Okay. So let's talk about waves for a second. So most of these waves are coming from like the Sea of Japan or like Gulf of Alaska or something like that. That's where these storms come from. Now that wave that's coming through that eventually reaches here, is that water molecule? Did that water molecule come from the Gulf of Alaska? No. What's happening is there's energy in the water, and that energy gets excited and it causes a ripple. So that excited energy is what's actually moving through the water, not the water molecule. Okay. Sure, there's waves that crash and there are moods once they crest and gravity pulls them down onto the shore or into the water themselves. But when I'm talking about energy moving, that is energy exciting a water molecule. Okay. So what does that mean? How we're talking about as above, so below. What I'm talking about here is everything is connected. It's like when you're at a football game or when you're watching they used to do the wave, right? Around a stadium.
Yeah.
The people are not moving around the stadium. They're just being excited and then they sit down, right? Now, the person sitting down is waiting for the person next to them to stand up and then sit down. And then it's my turn to stand up and then sit down and so on and so on. I am connected to the person next to me. The person next to me is connected to the person next to them and so on and so forth. Okay. So everything is connected, right? So we could say that the water molecules that land on the beach here on the north shore of Oahu are connected to the water molecules to in the Gulf of Alaska, right? Everything is connected. Now, well, how is the wind connected? Well, the wind is connected because, the wind is the thing that pushed on the water to make that energy transfer from the air into the water. Well, what caused the wind? Well, atmospheric pressure caused the wind. Well, okay, so what caused the atmospheric pressure? Well, the sun. The sun heated up the atmosphere and caused the atmospheric pressure. So you could see how the sun is intimately connected with the ocean because of that, right? So when they say as above, so below, it doesn't just mean everything has a mirror image. It means that everything is indeed connected, regardless of how many degrees, and the degrees are actually infinite. So that is a
which
universal law.
which is like also saying the grain of sand is equivalent to the stars, or a drop of ocean literally is the ocean.
Is the ocean? Yeah, yeah,
Got you.
um, yeah. So you're talking about cliche things. So you mentioned something that I talk about every Sunday, which is that's the second of the seven Hermetic laws or universal laws. Um,
You're like, how dare you?
well, no, these are things that I live by. So these are things that my father started teaching me when I was 7. And little did I know that his teachings would eventually affect thousands of people that I've talked to on Clubhouse every Sunday for over 3 years, and and have such a profound impact on my life. Like these 7. So when people talk about the law of attraction and manifesting, most people don't know, and most people have no idea that the seven universal laws or the seven hermetic principles is the law of attraction. Without them, nothing would, none of this shit would work. In the book, The Secret, they never told you the secret. They just told you like the fluff. The secret is the book is in the book, the Kybalion. It's the seven universal principles, and these are foundational laws of the universe, immutable laws that do not change. They're structural, meaning that it's like structural, elemental, foundational. We cannot, you cannot have the law of attraction without these seven principles.
I have a question.
Sure.
So, uh, I had seen this. I've talked about this before, but I watched this sleep scientist basically talk about how our dreams and real life can blend or mesh into each other because your brain has to get the REM sleep no matter what, right? It's going to drop no matter what, whether you sleep or not. So I was thinking to myself, does that mean if I stay up super late and I'm working and I'm delusionally tired, my dreams will blend into reality? But
Yes,
you have
dude,
to
they
but you have
do.
to still be working toward it. Like you can't just be up tired. You have to be working toward it and delusionally REM sleep dropping, crossing, blending dreams. Does that make sense?
Oh, dude, totally. I've not only experienced that, but when I was in, I don't know if it was in college, but I read about this researcher who did an experiment on sleep, and he stayed awake for I don't know how many days or weeks, and he was like, you know, recording his experience, writing down his experience, and he, you start to hallucinate, you start to have dreams while you're awake. Pretty wild stuff. It was a long time ago I read about this, but you, I had mentioned a brain injury, and you perked up. I My brain injury caused those experiences. I I had three sleep studies done. I actually have another sleep study in coming up in 5 days. But I had to have these sleep studies because I was experiencing like weird shit. I started hearing voices. This is after my brain injury. I was hearing voices in my head that are as clear as your voice is. Like I was helping my parents move. I was in their living room, and someone just yelled my name, and I looked, and I'm the only one in the house. And then I literally walked outside. I'm like, who's here? And then it kept happening. So I had to have like a neuropsychological evaluation and make sure I didn't have dissociative disorder, which is,
Damn.
schizophrenia essentially.
But specifically your name though.
Oh yeah. But then it started turning into other things. So, um, I was literally like hearing conversations, and then my mind would start to go off, like almost bifurcate. So I had to have these sleep studies. And there was this one instance where I was having other symptoms too, like these brain shocks. So every now and then they'd come and check on me. So I was awake on my freaking laptop, and there's a camera in like I'm in a sleep study center. So it's a small bedroom. It's the size of a closet. I have 26 electrodes on my head. I have a picture of me, and I'm on my laptop working. And the guy's camera, like the camera's on me. Dude walks into the room. He's just like, and he looked kind of puzzled. And this is a sleep study tech. And he's just like, I got to check something. And he's like, I have a shaved head. The electrodes were like stuck on my head. And he's just like, I just want to make sure that these are connected. I'm like, is everything okay? He's just like, yeah, how are you feeling? I'm like, I feel great. He's just like, are you alert? I'm like, yeah, I'm doing work on my computer. And he's just like, okay. And then he goes back and he comes back in. He's just like, okay, yeah, so you're alert? I'm like, yeah, like I'm talking to you. So he's just like, yeah, it's like your brain waves are in REM right now.
What?
I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay. I don't know what that means. Like, I know what it means, but like, it's bizarre.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was weird. So what you were just talking about is like I've experienced that, but it wasn't because I was like trying or I
Yeah.
didn't have lack of sleep. Like I had a fucking brain injury, you know?
Yeah, I mean, wait, I'm just like, the text said your brain's asleep, sir. I need to check these wires.
Yeah,
Nah,
yeah.
your
That's
brain's
a true
asleep, and
story.
then you're over here like, what? Like
Yeah,
wide awake? Can you
yep,
imagine the puzzling?
yeah,
It's a good
yeah. Because
story.
something like that could happen, and it's called sleepwalking, right? Have you ever seen someone who like legit freaking sleepwalks? Like they're doing
Seen
shit.
videos, but no.
Yeah, you see people walking up and making themselves sandwiches at night, like they're dreaming, you know. But it
Yeah.
wasn't that. Like I was like, it's part of my day. I'm working on my
Damn.
computer. It was a 4 day study, 3 nights,
How
4 days.
did you get the injury or what happened?
I got hit by a garbage truck.
What?
Yeah, ironically,
No
the
wonder you
garbage
don't
truck.
talk about it. It's so random.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny too, because like when you're a kid, you're like, oh yeah, you want to get hit by a truck, and I got hit by a truck.
The
The
slowest one.
guy fell asleep at the wheel, came in my lane. It was gnarly. Yeah.
What?
Ah,
So good outcome, I hope.
yeah. I'm good. The only symptom I have left is like when I'm dehydrated, I still get brain shocks. But other than that, I'm good. I feel
like a
good.
spaz kind of feeling.
It's like a cattle prod in my brain.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You have a low water signal.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Brain shock. Oh, drink some water. I, I I've literally been having them all day because I went surfing for like 3 hours straight, and
Dude,
yeah.
I was wondering, do people ever take GoPros to the top of like 100-foot wave or some shit?
Oh fuck yeah, man.
God, that's so freaking crazy. Like,
Those guys, yeah, dude, it's so much power. The water is so powerful. I just don't understand. These guys, like my friend Jamie, he lives.
oh, Rogan's
Um,
boy. Just kidding.
n- no, um, Jamie Mitchell, he's an Australian guy. Um, he's a big wave surfer and like pretty well known. I think he has a podcast too. But I watched him have a gnarly wipeout at Jaws, Piahi in Maui, like really, really bad. And he didn't come up for a while. And I was talking to him, like he was down for a long time. So you're paddling into a 60-foot wave. Your heart rate is going at like a buck 20 already, right? So you have to hold your breath. Like 30 seconds is a long time to be underwater. So he was under for like over 20 seconds, which is long. I can hold my breath for just under 5 minutes, just sitting here, right? But when your heart rate's at 120 or more, like your body's burning through
You're
oxygen.
dying for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine paddling into a
Felt
big wave and
Probably
then
felt like 2 minutes.
the atmospheric pressure of the water, right? Not just being, 20 feet underwater, of the pressure of that, which I don't know how many atmospheres that is, but the water pressure from the waves. So he was pinned down on the bottom and holding his breath, and I'm like, how how'd you feel? Like, did you did you feel like you had to scramble to come up and get some air? And he's like, well, no. He's just like, I had plenty of air. And he's like, you always have more air than you think. And which is pretty amazing to me because we were talking earlier about fear and being in the moment and getting in your head. Like that's like an elite athlete right there that can handle a situation like that. Most people would panic and fucking drown.
Yeah, he's just chilling
So
at the bottom of the ocean, getting
yeah,
pummeled and
literally.
shit.
Well, you just have to wait until the water lets you up,
I'm
and
just
then
like,
you're
you
like,
probably close your eyes. You're just getting mauled or something, just accepting the
yeah.
beating.
And at that point he was already concussed, like he had a concussion, like,
Damn.
so pretty incredible.
Slight pivot here. What's up with the state of the world? Did you see the Union speech? What'd you think of all this?
Oh, dude, I didn't watch it. Um,
I salute
like,
you.
why am I going to watch some, like, you know, um, elder abuse? Essentially, what I want to know is this. Here's an interesting topic. This is kind of what I want to talk about. Is that we've the whole world has seen Biden not be able to put a few words together, simple words, not to be able to remember the word God, like simple shit. Um, Literally walking like you would think an old, worn out 80-year-old might walk. And then, what kind of drugs are they giving him to give a speech? Right? What is that? What are do you know what? I don't know my drugs. So, what could you possibly give an 80-year-old man with dementia the ability to fucking give a, not a, it wasn't a good speech, but like to be able to put sentences together when they normally can't? What is that?
I don't know.
I don't know. Is that what that does?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the other theory, which I know this is the conspiracy part, is that he's got a double.
Yeah, I thought about that one too.
Dude, we've all seen pictures of the earlobes, the nose. The last one of someone took a close up photo.
But but how are you gonna mimic the voice like that though?
Oh, dude, come on. It is not hard. How many stand up comedians that do impressions that just kill it, right?
Oh man,
That's a skill you can learn. And they
that's
teach that in the
crazy.
CIA.
You really think that was level 3 in front of us? They pulled off a level 3.
Yeah.
I
It,
think I think it wasn't that good though. They had to. That's what's crazy is the topics that they're choosing to pick are so ridiculous. Like, really, you're gonna stand on these topics of being what you're gonna run on? It's so absurd that that's why I believe it's real. I'm like, oh, you really believe this?
well, I didn't watch it, so I can't say one way or the other. But I do know that I saw a photo of him. It was taken by a Republican on their cell phone, and a close up of his face, and
Was it the
at
eye hole?
the eye hole. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I can easily just go to some shadow excuse in my head, but I mean, I've seen the neck one, I've seen the ears, and
Yeah.
I don't doubt that it's not a real thing. It's just the performance isn't any better. That's the problem. It's
Okay.
not.
So again, it's either some sort of awesome
That's why
drug.
I think it's a drug.
You think
Because
maybe they're giving him like microdosing him with LSD with some Adderall?
yeah, but the thing is, he's too self aware. Like he's whether he can form a sentence or not, I guess is easy to fake. But he's too self aware, where he knows where he's at, who's there, who's around him, making jokes.
That night, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I do. I was talking about this with my wife today, as well. we we're talking. She's just like, well, they have clones. I'm like, they're not clones. They're just there's like like the world's best prosthetics are put over someone who can imitate his voice and his mannerisms. So we had a debate about that, like maybe 2.5 hours ago, and I said, well, one thing for sure is I remember when Hillary Clinton was on the campaign trail and there was the video of her, she passed out and the Secret Service are like holding her up, getting her into the car. You remember that? So maybe like an hour later, there's video of her walking out of this apartment with this little girl next to her. And she's on the campaign trail and there's always people around, meaning the public, and they are she's engaging with them all the time. That
But
one
this
time
time,
she didn't, they had their sidewalk roped off and she was walking, and then there were,
straight to the car, straight to the car. We gotta go.
well, she looked different. And the funny thing is someone had pointed out, it was like, that's funny, Hillary doesn't walk with her purse in that hand. And then you could zoom in and you could tell that like the outfit was supposedly the same. It looked the same if you weren't really paying attention, but the outfit was actually different. Like there were different things. So, one could argue like, well, she went in and, you know, dressed herself up a little bit or whatever, but there were some things that were off. And then clearly the face. She had these big, huge glasses on, but so I'm convinced that that day that was a Hillary duplicate, a body double or whatever. Forbidden to speak to anyone. She didn't speak. She didn't say, yeah, I had low blood sugar, like nothing like that. Why wouldn't you? Anyway, it's a weird topic.
Isn't that funny? I told you about the message I got from Russia, and you're like, "Don't
Dude,
do
I
it."
wouldn't. Well, Russia's safer than North Korea.
But
My,
we're on like it's on like a high alert list or some shit. I'm like, do I have to hit up an embassy if I'm coming?
yeah, I don't know. I do know though, if you get paid to do anything there, you have to fill out some sort
I
of,
wouldn't. I wouldn't take money for shit, especially not
okay,
right now.
take some Bitcoin.
Nah, I would
Yeah,
literally just do some charity shit. That's it.
I don't know, man. I take all kinds of fucking crazy risks in my life, but I wouldn't go to Russia right now. I mean, I
So
know,
many people are like, I can. Why do I imagine you getting a house visit? So many people told me that.
yeah, dude. Yeah. Although, you did go viral in Russia. So,
Only reason I'm there. The only
yeah,
reason.
I don't know. I that's where I tend to be on the conservative side. Like, fuck no, I'm not going to Russia right now. Like, would I love to go to Russia? Sure, but I gotta wait till shit cools down.
Dude, you
And
know
then
what's
you have,
funny was
go ahead.
I was like call senators like all the time, trying to like get them on board for my projects. And the one that I noticed that like never picks up, never answers, is never around, like where you're just like, do y'all do anything? Is Ted Cruz. It's pretty funny.
Really?
I'm just like, can y'all call me back? Any office, somebody. But today, a month later, uh Vincente Gonzalez, I think his last name is, responded to an email, and it's like there, it's just crazy how many email addresses you got that's an excuse that you're like, sorry, we have to check all of these and then get back to them when we have time.
I'm sure they get flooded, dude.
I know, dude, and I'm
I
not
mean,
even
think
hating.
about it.
I'm
Like,
just like, wow.
yeah. I mean, I
What's up with rebuilding Hawaii? Are you on the forefront
is what?
with your representatives? Are you all on the forefront?
Well, for during the 2016 election cycle, for the first time in my life, I became affiliated with a political party. It was when Bernie was running, and long story short, I became a delegate, and I was district precinct chair in my area.
That's pretty sick.
And so, because I figured, okay, we all talk politics, and fuck your guy, no, fuck your, that kind of stuff. I'm like, I'm gonna just put my money where my mouth is, and
I'm
just
just gonna bring
try.
UBI to Hawaii. Fuck it. That's what you said.
I'm gonna make change locally.
UBI Hawaii.
So I got involved, And what was cool is I got to meet the governor. I got to meet several senators that I'm on first name basis with. I got to meet and hang out with Tulsi Gabbard on a few occasions.
Beautiful.
And what I learned is that dude, this could be a whole nother podcast or talk or whatever, but like, there's no fucking hope, dude.
Oh shit.
Like going through the regular parties, the Republican or Democratic Party, there is no hope. It is not going to happen. You literally need a guy like Kennedy to come in and clean house and like clean shit
Here's
up. Like,
here's my
yeah.
thing though. I assume you're right. What are the odds that they give someone like that an even any platform anyway to vote?
That's the other thing, dude, is like,
My whole life, never seen it.
I, you know, they're so good at rigging elections, and I know that's like conspiracy talk, but like it's true. We watched the hearings of the Diebold machines and shit. Like they're programmable,
Yeah,
easily. You have the skills to hack them. I don't, but you do, right?
androids. They're androids.
Yeah, you could get into it. Yeah. So, you're right about that. Will they give them a chance? All I know
It's
is
gonna be
like,
super annoying if he turns into like millions of dollars and then it's just like he's not even involved in the race and he's just got all this cash. That's
well,
super
that's what happened
annoying.
with Bernie. I
That's what
spent a
I'm
lot of
saying.
money. Yeah. And, and think about that. Like all of that campaign money that is used for fucking bullshit, wasted, burned. What if that money got injected into the local economy, like to fix the roads, to give, there's schools here in Hawaii, dude, that they don't have air conditioning. They like, that's ridiculous. In Honolulu, where it gets hot.
Yeah.
Um, you could do a lot with that money. It's just everything's
How
everything.
the hell is anybody poor in Hawaii? Isn't that crazy?
How is anyone poor? How does anyone have money?
It's just nuts. I'm just like, if you live somewhere out there, you wouldn't expect to have like any ghettos, is what I'm getting at.
Oh no, there's ghettos, dude, all over. Holy sh! On the west side of Oahu in Waianae, it's really where the low-income Hawaiians have been pushed, but that's going to change. That'll all be gentrified one day, unfortunately. And then
And they
now,
are they
that's,
indigenous too?
oh yeah, they're Native Hawaiians,
Sucks.
and they'll get pushed. And what's happening is they're getting pushed to Big Island, where Big Island is, the last hope for a Hawaiian to own a home, and that's even getting more expensive. So I don't know, but like we bought land out there. That's where our retreat center is, and we bought 5 acres. There was a 3,800 square foot house on it, and for the price we paid, like we wouldn't even be able to entertain a house here. It's crazy how the difference is. So
So how far is the retreat from where you live?
I'm on Oahu, and the retreat center is on a different island called the Big Island, or the island of Hawaii.
Do you have to fly to get there?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Damn, you're
only,
flying all the time. That's tight.
oh, dude, all the time. Like Southwest Airlines, A list preferred, all that.
Tight.
Yeah, but the only we're pretty
Do you
lucky
prefer?
here.
Are you Boeing preferred?
Oh yeah, Boeing preferred. Yeah, I prefer to be on a different plane. Um, we rent this beach, this townhome on the North Shore at Sunset Beach. We're right on the beach, and it's not cheap, but we are, we make it work, and we just figure like how often, how many people can say they lived beachfront in one of the most desirable places in the world. So we're like, fuck it, it's worth it right now. Let's just enjoy it. So at some point, we probably won't be able to afford it here when when they raise the rent, or kick us out because they want to sell it, whatever. We know it's not permanent, but we're just here enjoying it. So, but at some point, we'll probably have to just pack our shit up and permanently move to the Big Island, which is fine.
Damn.
But it's different,
What would
you
that
know.
mean though? You live in the retreat?
Yeah,
Is that's tight. That's
yeah,
pretty good. Damn.
yeah. It's
So
beautiful. Yeah.
you want to like do any like inviting words for guests that may be considering trying to come or look for a place?
Here's the difference between us and every other retreat center is that we do not do large groups. So if you have an aversion to large groups, or you don't want to share that you were molested or abused or whatever trauma that you experience, or maybe there's shame around your addiction and you don't really feel comfortable talking around a group of people, like, there's a place for you. And it's Soul Temple, our retreat center. Not my philosophy on psilocybin. I'm not talking about other medicines, but psilocybin, like, you've done mushrooms. When you take mushrooms, sometimes there are times when you become paranoid, like you hear a voice. Like, there's been plenty of times when even me, where I could be really directive in my journey, meaning that, like, I can direct my experience. If I hear a voice that might be walking near me, I automatically think, like, oh my God, they know I'm here. They know I'm tripping on mushrooms. Like, it's just irrational. But that's the experience you have. So when you do psilocybin, if you're in your journey, so let's just say there's a group of 10 people in a room, everyone's tripping, and you're experiencing this really incredible moment to where you're going to have a breakthrough, and then the person next to you starts crying or laughing or
Throws the
starts
vibe.
talking to you, your experience is going to be totally directed to another place and take you out of that, and you'll never get back. The other issue is, if you are needing emotional support or someone to talk to about something really heavy, we have a client that's coming that went through something like just horribly traumatic recently. And we did the discovery call yesterday, and, like, my heart started beating, like, because I just felt for this person. So you're trying to heal a massive trauma. And when you're in that state, you're very conscious of who's around you and very aware and very subconscious of, like, who's around you. And sometimes you might feel judged. Are you going to feel like safe to cry in front of a group of people? So for me, psilocybin is a very personal experience. It should be the person going on the experience and a practitioner or two solely there, number one, for your safety, and number two, in the event that they need to talk, they need to hug it out, they need some sort of emotional support. So that's what we offer. We offer a one-on-one experience, a lot of compassion, and we have a very unique approach. Like, when I say unique, I'm not using that word lightly. Like, no, I'm not saying what I'm doing is better than anyone else, but integrate, like, pre-journey preparation is really important. Integration is extremely important, and our approach to the integration starts with the preparation, and has to do with acceptance, and understanding the 7 universal laws, or the 7 Hermetic principles, because understanding those, even at a basic level, will help you on your journey when you're in the middle of your trip. And they will absolutely help you with acceptance, on the path of integration of that experience. So that's what we're doing. We don't charge a lot. We charge a fraction of what all the other retreats in Jamaica and Mexico are charging for one-on-one retreats. Jamaica, you want to be one-on-one with just one practitioner, you're paying 10 grand, and it's only a 5-day retreat.
Damn.
And integration is not included in that.
Damn.
And with us, it's just under $3,000, and you're in paradise, and you're being fed and picked up to the airport with integration and excursions and really good food. So that's why we set it. That one of the reasons why we set it up as a church. We don't have the pressure to make a profit, but we need enough to be able to function and make it work.
How long
So
did it take to come up with the whole, like, not this setting, but the whole program in itself?
you mean like the retreat center and everything, or
Well,
the
yeah, because
process?
I know you were actually physically like making it to look good and presentable, but like the actual programs that you teach, is that hard?
No, because the programs, like the integration programs, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I mean that's
Or
part of it, and I'm just like, because it doesn't seem like easy to just set up a whole retreat and then be like, here's the classes, here's the walkthrough, here's what we'll do this time and these days. It's a lot of coordination involved.
yeah, I used to own a nightclub, and we used
That
to host.
explains everything.
We It wasn't a
You're
regular
like,
nightclub.
yeah, you're like, it's nothing.
So like dealing with a couple of people, yeah, like logistically, it's so easy, you know.
That's super
So
funny.
yeah, it's you know, yeah. But I mean, coming up with the plan and the protocol and everything, like you have to think it out, experiment with it a little bit, and until it hits its stride. So and then just offering, uh, just offering something that is useful. Coming up with it, I think. I don't know. I tend to. I'm really. Anytime I go anywhere, I'm like I said earlier, I like being in my thoughts, and I'm always analyzing shit. So I used to own a restaurant, and I know what it takes to run a restaurant. It's hard business, man. And I also know what goes on in the kitchen. You know, that's even without reading Anthony Bourdain's book. I'm like hypercritical, so I never really have a great time in a hospital or in a restaurant. I've been part of all kinds of different programs and stuff. So like I just take the best parts of like, hey, this was a really good experience, or even just put myself in the mindset of a customer. Like, well, what are my needs as a customer? So that's kind of how we put everything together. So
Yeah,
yeah,
to get a little first episode here, get to know
yeah,
you,
yeah,
and
for
then
sure.
just thinking you could try to get Silver and maybe Nate on the next one. That'd be tight. Like do a
Yeah,
little
I know Nate.
collab pod.
He's on a mission with this company he started working with, so he
I
might be a
feel
little
that.
more difficult. But I feel like so much has happened, that there's a lot to talk about. And when I say so much has happened, I mean from like the Clubhouse peak, you know.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
And
Um,
we're on the cusp of some crazy shit, dude. There's so much other shit I could talk to you about. Some of it I probably shouldn't mention,